All right, what's up, FFA? Good morning, everybody. As we jump in to this Monday morning, can't be more excited to jumpstart this week with you guys. And on today's call, we're going to dive into what to do when. So I've got a bunch of scenarios here for you that you are going to run into as an agent. I'm sure many of you have already gone through all of these, but I'm just going to dive into each scenario and how to tackle it to make this career, make this job so much easier and simpler for you and to make it more streamlined. So we're going to jump into a bunch of different situations with you guys on today's call, but hats off to you last week as a lot of agents went big. Let's jump into the verse of the day as we kick off this Monday morning. Romans 8:28 states that we know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. This verse is something that I try to arm myself with as I go into the work week because it's Monday, right? You got a lot of things that pop off on Mondays. But that's so true, guys. Sometimes when you're going through a struggle, when you're going through a hardship, you don't really realize what God is doing through that hardship. You don't really realize how a lot of times it's the hardship that actually allows you to see what he's capable of. I can think of all of the toughest times in my life and seeing how he worked through those, right? And it really brought me closer to him in the end. So no matter what you're waking up to this Monday morning, just know that, right? Nothing happens unless it's happening for the good of those who love God. All right. And it might seem, you might be looking at the situation and think there's no way that any good could come out of this, but I promise you there's always a positive that can come out of any situation. It's very hard to see it when we're going through it, but eventually you will see it. So keep that verse armed with you as you go into this Monday morning. We know that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Let's talk about the top 15. These agents went huge last week as they battled each other out to put their names on the leaderboard out of a lot of agents. So shout out to these 15 who just had a phenomenal week. Big shout out to Beth. I think Beth finished up the week at like 9 applications or something crazy like that, Beth. So big shout out to you for having a phenomenal week. We had Aaron with another amazing week. Kirk with another amazing week for him. Jody, like always, putting her name in the top of the chart. We had Jennifer Garner. Shout out to Jennifer Garner. Jennifer's been in the top 15, I want to say, the last 3 weeks in a row. So big shout out to her for doing big things. We had Becca in the top 15. She's put her name, I think Becca has put her name in the top 15 since she's gotten started. So big shout out to her week after week. We had Kaylee crushing it like always. We had Ashley. Big shout out to Ashley. Hey, if you guys missed Friday's call, make sure you go back and listen to it because we had Ashley on there and then we had Corey, 2 brand new agents who, as you see, they're both in the top 15 for last week. No surprise there, but they have been off to a phenomenal start. So if you're a new agent and you want to know what it takes to get started and to be successful, go back to Friday's call and listen to the tips that they shared. But big shout out to her for putting her name on the chart. We had Savannah, like always, crushing it. Savannah has put up more AP in the history of FFA than I think anybody, and it's showing week in and week out for her. So big shout out to Savannah. We had Becky taking home Rookie of the Year, her rookie year, and here she is, always putting her name at the top of the charts. Julie, like always, crushing it, putting her name in there. Then we had Jenna, like always. Those 3, the dynamic trio there, they're always in the top 15. So big shout out to them. We had Kelly with a phenomenal week. Big shout out to Kelly. She went out there and crushed the life production, but she also unlocked an annuity that we're going to be going over here in the days to come. So big shout out to Kelly for that. Then taking home the top 2, we had Corey, who you guys heard from on Friday's call. Check it out. Almost break the 10K club. He was on 11 applications on the week for him. So big shout out to Corey. Then taking home number 1, we had Joni take home number 1 as she ran to over $10,000. So phenomenal job to you, Joni. Top 15, Super proud of you guys. All right. It takes a lot of hard work day in and day out to put your name at the top of the charts. So hats off to you guys for doing that. Let's jump into today's call. Today's going to be more of a training based call with a little bit of motivation for you, but these are some situations that you're going to run into. And with it being May 5th, all right, I know this first situation is one that a lot of you have woke up to this morning. And that situation is, what do you do when your client misses a draft payment? Okay, as you guys all know, most of our clients are making their payment, their first payment, all right, on the 3rd of each month, but the 3rd was on a weekend. So what do you do today if you woke up to an email that your client's first draft did not go through? All right, this was something for me as a new agent that I made it more complicated than it needed to be, right? So if this happened to you today, if you were expecting for this policy to go through and the next thing you know, you get the insufficient funds email, it's a very simple fix, guys. Pick up that phone, call your client, and this is what you say. All right, you say, hey, Miss Betty, it's Ryan. I'm the gentleman that helped you out with your life insurance, a few weeks ago. Hey, look, there must have been an issue between the bank and the insurance company. Maybe it was because it was the weekend. For whatever reason, that first draft didn't seem to process. So we need to go ahead and call them today to make sure we get that set up so your policy is good to go. It's all you got to do, guys. The minute you get a missed draft email, just call them. 99% of the time, they want the insurance and they think that it already came out. They don't know that it didn't work out. All right. Maybe their other bills came out first for whatever reason. But if you woke up to a missed draft payment today, that is the very first thing that I want you guys to fix going into your work week, because it's not about what you write. It's about what actually gets approved, issued, and paid is what's going to create the long-term success for you as an agent. So Mondays are always my day, especially the first Monday of the month, that I'm going through and I'm fixing any declines, any drafts that didn't go through, whatever the case is, I'm getting it all fixed today. So if you woke up to some missed draft payments because it's the 5th of the month, get back in front of your clients, get them on the phone. Let's reprocess those payments and make sure their coverage is good to go. So that's the first situation. The second situation, all right, and these are some things I've seen over the last few weeks, right, that agents are running into. Okay, what do you do when your client tells you they want to set an appointment? Okay, let's say you're a door knocking agent, you're out there in the field, you go up to the door and they say, hey, I'm not feeling really good right now. I do want to talk to you. Can we set an appointment? Okay, guys, this is code for they are never going to answer the door when you come back. All right. So new agents, don't get excited when somebody says, can we set an appointment? It is a smoke screen for you to get off of their doorstep. All right. So a lot of new agents make this mistake. They go up to the door. Miss Betty's very excited. She's happy. She's in a good mood. She says, hey, I just don't have time right now. Can you come back Wednesday at 10 a.m.? All right. And you're thinking, yep, that's going to be an easy one. I'm going to go back Wednesday. And you show up and nobody's there, right? Guys, don't set appointments at the door. You have a 75% chance of never getting back in front of that client again. All right. And this is something I messed up early on and something that I want you guys to fix. What do you do when they tell you that? Hey, can you set an appointment? The only time that I'm accepting that as an objection is when their car is running and they're literally walking out of the door when I'm walking up to it. Clearly, they've got something going on, right? But if they answer the door, the TV's playing, they're in their pajamas, now's a perfect time to talk to them. So if they say, can we set an appointment? Guys, you just overcome it, right? Gosh, Miss Betty, I really would love to. Unfortunately, I'm just running all over the place all the time. But look, I know you're super busy. I'm super busy too. So I'll make sure I'm very quick for you today. Let's go over these benefits on the porch real quick. Overcome the objection, guys. Don't get in the habit of setting appointments at the door. Now, if you do have to set an appointment, let's say your client's just not having it, your client or your appointment has to be dictated off of your schedule and not theirs. Because if you do it off of theirs, you're expendable, right? You're going to show up. They're not going to be there. It is what it is. So how do I do that? I'll say, hey, Miss Betty, no problem. You're busy right now. You'll probably be free later though, right? Like between 4 and 5. Notice what I did there. You'll probably be available later if you're busy right now between 4 or 5. Perfect. I'll make you the last stop of the day. Notice how I was in control. I'm setting it to my schedule. That way, guys, the worst thing you can do as an agent is set an appointment for 3-4 days out at a specific time. You go way out of your way. You set your whole day up around that appointment. You show up and nobody's there. I promise you it's going to happen if you're doing this at the door. So make sure if you do set an appointment, you set it based off of your time when you can get there, and do it in a time frame, right? I'll be there between 4 and 5, 5 and 6. Don't set a specific time, because then you're going to set your whole day up around it and it's going to get messed up. So that's what you do when you can, someone says, can we set an appointment? Let's talk about a big one going into the week. All right. This is where a lot of agents sometimes struggle, and that is you don't have leads. All right. What are leads? We all know what leads are, right? People to talk to, people to get in front of, people to prospect with. What do you do if you're an agent right now? All right. And you're coming into Monday morning and you don't have any new to you leads, right? Maybe you're trying to run the same ones you did last week or whatever. Guys, if you do the same thing, you're going to get the same result. If you work the same leads, you're going to get the same result. So don't do that. All right. If you're going into Monday morning without leads, there's really one of two reasons. Number one, you just didn't prepare for it. All right. You forgot to on the weekend. Or number two, maybe you don't have the funds to get leads. Don't let that be the reason that you're not out there prospecting and becoming successful. I know you have somebody in your call to close thread that would be more than happy to help get you some leads and get you started for this week. So if you're a brand new agent, maybe funds are tight, don't let that be the reason that you don't have a successful week. There's a simple fix for that, and it's asking for help. All right. On top of that, if you're going into this week and you don't know where to work, all right, or how to work, or who you're going to talk to, guys, really simple. Go to the FFA Google Drive, pull up the lead PDF. All right, it's inside of there. Pick one of the vendors on there. I promise you they will have leads wherever you're needing to go within an hour of you. Okay, and just go work. All right, set you up a new campaign on the lead center. You're going to get leads rolling in like that, and you're going to be off to having success. But if you don't have leads going into the week, you're not going to have a successful week. You always have to have new, fresh people to talk to if you want to win in this business. So that's one situation that I see coming into a Monday. Let's talk about another one. All right. Let's talk about this for all the telesales agents out there. What do you do when people don't answer the phones? All right. If you're a telesales agent, you've probably seen that this has gotten worse and worse and worse. And that's people not answering the phones when you call them. Guys, I was sitting in front of a client last week or 2 weeks ago, and literally their phone would ring. They'd hit ignore, ignore, ignore. Most people, all right, in the retirement age, 60, 65 and up, are getting telemarketing calls all day long. It's brutal for them. Even if they're on the do not call list, I've seen it firsthand how many times these people are getting phone calls. So a lot of times one of those calls might be you, and you might actually be responding to something they asked for, but you can't get a hold of them. So what do you do when people won't answer the phone? All right, guys, if you're a telesales agent or an in-person agent doing call aheads, really simple. You have to call them back to back to back. telemarketers generally do not call 3 times in a row. If somebody calls 3 times in a row, there's a problem, right? They're like, who is this calling me? I was at our little girl's dance practice last week, and my phone rang from a number I didn't know who it was. I instantly hit ignore. Then they call me right back again, and I picked it up. I'm like, well, this must be somebody important. Heck no, it was somebody trying to sell me something, right? I fell for my own trick, but it worked. If it worked on me, it will work for the clients that you're trying to help. So don't be afraid to call people multiple times. And if they don't answer in the morning, let's say you call them in the morning, call them again in the afternoon, 2 to 3 times in a row. All right. If you do that enough, you're going to get them on the phone. Guys, it generally takes 5 to 7 attempts to get somebody on the phone. So if you're a telesales agent or you're out there door knocking, trying to get a hold of people, understand that. Like, you got to do it 5 to 7 times throughout the day on average to even get them to pick up the phone. Okay. So think about that as you guys go into this week, especially on telesales. If you're not calling people multiple times throughout the day to try to get a hold of them, you're missing a lot of opportunities there. Okay, let's talk about this one. This is a big situation, okay, that you guys will run into here and there. But let's talk about, right, life is busy. So for us as business owners, for you as a business owner, all right, maybe you have children in sports. Maybe you have a lot going on. Maybe you've got errands to run, doctor's appointments, all this different stuff. What do you do if you have a limited amount of time? All right, let's say you're looking at your goals for the week and you want to put up a certain production amount, but your time is limited. Guys, sometimes, all right, this business is a blessing and a curse because we allow ourselves to set our own schedule. But what that turns into a lot of times is our schedule gets thrown off between all these other things. So what do you do if you don't have a lot of time? All right, I was talking to my dad about this. I don't know how we could function with 4 kids if I had to be in a W-2 job working 9 to 5 every single day, right? Like, just a picture for you guys today, right? Kids got to go to daycare. Kids got to go to school. Kids get out of school at like 2:30, 3 o'clock. One of them's got a baseball game at 5. We've got another one that's got tutoring at 4. What do you do? Like, how do you maximize your time to be able to still be a successful agent, but be able to manage everything else, all right, in the middle, guys? Because activity is going to equal success. But if you have a lot of things going on that lower your activity, you need to be able to crunch in intentional timing throughout the day if you want to find success as an agent. So what do you do if you have limited time as an agent? Number one, you got to ask yourself this question. If I was at a W-2 job, if somebody was paying me hourly and I would lose my job if I didn't show up between these certain amount of hours, all right, why don't you treat yourself like that in this business, right? If it's a legitimate reason that you could get off of work in your W-2 world, well, then it should be a legitimate reason to put that in your schedule in this world. But if it's not, right? Like, if you're waking up and you're like, maybe I'm going to go do this, but in W-2 world, that would have gotten you fired for not showing up. You need to implement that as you're an agent, right? Because otherwise what's going to happen is you're not going to find the success that you want to find. So if you have limited time in the field, maybe you got kids to pick up from school, daycare, vice versa, limited time on the phones, guys, you only need about 6 dedicated hours a day to have just a phenomenal career as an agent. And inside of that time frame, you got to maximize your time. So you've got to be setting appointments. You've got to be doing call aheads. You've got to be texting people when they don't answer their phone if you're a telesales agent. You have to use all the tools at your disposal if you want to win. You can't just go out there and wing it for a few hours and think that you're going to have a good week, because you're not. If you're doing that in the field, you're going to drive around. You might not get in front of anybody for 3 hours, right? You just wasted all your time. So make sure that you're taking all the tools at your disposal and pushing it so that you can crunch in time. All right. When I was in the field doing this full time, just door knocking, right, and selling, what did I do? I booked an appointment every hour of the day that I was in the field. So at nighttime, between 6 and 7 o'clock at night, all right, I'd sneak out of my house. Alicia probably wondered where I was going, right? Leave her with all the kids right at bedtime. I'd get in my car and I would take all my leads and I'd call them. And I would say, hey, I'm Ryan. I'm the local agent here in whatever county you're working. I've got the final expense benefits that you had sent in for. I'm going to be in your area tomorrow, bringing these by to a bunch of other people. I'll be there for you between 9 and 10 in the morning. Will you be at home? Right. And they're going to say, what is this about? And I just say, I'll show it to you when I get there, but I'll be there between 9 and 10. Is there any gates or dogs I got to be on the lookout for? And they would say, no. I'd be like, okay, cool. I know you're confused, but I'll be there and I'll explain it to you once I get there. I would have like 20 of those conversations a night so that I could book 8 appointments for the next day. I'd book one between 9 and 10, 10 and 11, 11 and 12. And throughout the day, I was just hustling, getting to those. Why would I book 8? Because 2 of them would always stand me up, but it allowed me to sit with 6 people a day. Guys, 6 times 5 is 30 presentations in a week. If you do 30 in a week, you're going to be having a phenomenal career as an agent. It's all about the activity and the work that you want to put in. So if you're an agent with limited time, you got to get on the phones the night before and structure your day for the next day. And even if you're an experienced agent, all right, I promise you, if you do that, you'll double your production and double your income, most likely, pretty much guaranteed the next month. If you take what you're doing, it's just math, right? If you're doing 12 presentations right now a week because you're just driving around door knocking and some people are at home, some people aren't. Next thing you know, you take that to doing 24 presentations in a week. If you double your activity, you're going to double your production and your income at the same time. So, guys, just a few situations for you, all right, of what you could run into as an agent. All right, the last 2 that I'm going to go over with you on today's call are going to help you either inside the house or getting into the presentation, right? The first one is, what do you do when your client that you're presenting to doesn't have an income? Like maybe they're waiting on their Social Security to come in. Maybe they just got laid off of work. What do you do in that situation? Guys, this is just called a quick no. That's all that it is. Don't spend 2 to 3 hours with somebody. Even though they want the coverage, they don't have the means to actually get it, right? Me and Corey did a presentation on like his second day of field training. The guy wanted insurance. He was living with his brother, but he was in between jobs. You know, he didn't have anything lined up yet. He just couldn't do it. And so we just left him our card and moved on to the next one, right? So guys, make sure you're qualifying your leads quickly, all right? Because you don't want to waste their time or your time. If they don't have an income, there's not an option. Now, sometimes a family member might want to pay for it, but if that family member is not present in the presentation, you're kind of wasting your time, right? So a quick no is better than a long no. Make sure you take that tip and run with it. And the last situation to go over with you guys, something you're probably going to run into today, whether you're doing telesales or door knocking in the field, is what do you do when you get all these leads, right? And then you go to talk to them and they say, hey, I didn't request that. I don't know who did that. I didn't do it. Guys, this is the worst time to try to argue with the client, right? If they're like, hey, I didn't request that, the worst thing you could do as an agent is turn around and say, well, yeah, you did. Here's your birthday. Says you did it yesterday. Like, even though we all know they did it yesterday, you don't want to argue this, right? So my go-to, if I'm on the phone or if it's in person and they say, hey, I didn't request this, it's very simple. Guys, only one person can be mad at one time. All right. This is a tip for you. Okay. What do I mean by that? Your clients might be frustrated because they don't know what this is about. But if you take their frustration and even elevate it to now you're frustrated, it literally makes them happy, right? Because they see that you're agreeing with them. It's hard to explain it, but this is what I would do, right? If they say, "Hey, I didn't request that," I act shocked. I'm like, "You didn't request that? Oh my, somebody did it for you. We got to figure that out. We got to figure out who did this then. I'm going to go get my stuff. I'll be right back." And that's my end to the presentation, right? I'm agreeing with them. Maybe they didn't do it. Maybe somebody else has their information. I don't know. But the person who's saying, "Hey, I didn't request that," I'll say, "Oh my God, somebody did it for you. That's a problem. We need to figure out who did this for you then." Right? I'm going to go turn my car off. I'll be right back. Maybe it was a loved one. Maybe somebody loves you enough that they filled this out for you, but I'll be right back. I'm going to go get my binder and we're going to go through it. And that's my in to the presentation. So don't try to like qualify your lead. If they're saying they didn't do it, you're not going to talk them into the fact that they actually did do it. Just go with it. All right. And it's going to make your job easy. When you say that, you should see the relief off their face. They're like, "Yeah, Ryan, let's figure out who did this." Right. It almost always works. So that's a big one, guys. You're going to get hit with that a lot. All right. People get embarrassed that they filled something out online. They don't have time to go over it, whatever the reason is, but just roll with it and don't argue with it. I know there's a lot of information crunched into a short amount of time, but my goal for you guys is that you have the biggest week of your career this week. And these situations are things that could derail you from having that. So make sure you take those tips, run with them into this Monday, and let's go have a phenomenal day. And we will be back here Wednesday. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in.